term paradox means something that is impossible, that you cannot understand. How is it logical or rational that two things, opposite things, can coexist and mean something rational? How can it be? But in the natural state, paradox is very, very logical. And paradox is the nature of things. This is the absolute opposite of what humanity believes right now, that things has to be in some kind of order for them to make sense. And this perception comes from looking at reality. You see day, you see night, you see life, you see death, you see good, you see the bad, and you think these are opposite things, and you cannot perceive how these two very opposite things can be one, can show oneness itself. So we have to jump over this normal way of looking at things, just as we jump over the way we look at reality as if it was made of matter and happening through a timeline. All these perceptions are false. So let's take the next step and look at this oneness, why its nature is paradox and why paradox is a normal, very logical thing. To live in this reality as a separate form means to look at it in a certain kind of way. You are born, you die. So you see these two states and you can perceive with your own two eyes that something alive is moving and something dead is still. You see the difference between these two states in your very own eyes, and it's evident that they are different, they are not the same, so it would be a paradox to say that life and death are one and that they don't really happen. Paradox is the natural state of oneness because oneness is one. Inside oneness, there can be no two things. There are no separate forms in oneness. It is not compiled of the separate forms and phenomena and becomes one big thing that is full of things. It is only one. And its nature is one, and this nature is the opposite of what you perceive, the opposite of what you see. If oneness is one thing, these separate appearances, phenomena, have no real existence. So the paradox only comes from the misunderstanding that there are things that are separate and there are things that talk to each other. There is good, there is bad. So they cannot be the same thing, but oneness is one. It doesn't matter how oneness expresses itself because it is one. So only our belief system that sees everything divided, only this mechanism that allows us to tell our story in this reality, it is a very important mechanism. But it is a mechanism, and it is something we have learned through the years. and we're programmed to see. So we see things in of divideness. So it's literally impossible for us to believe this can be one. This is a paradox. They exist. In the absolute reality, nothing exists. So there can be no difference between things. The things do not exist, so there can be no difference between them. And because they are all the same expression of the same oneness, the same emptiness, they have the same nature. They are the same, so good and bad are the same expression of this oneness. Only in the story and only in the world of division and separateness, they appear to be different in their nature. And it is so wonderful because they are meant to be different, to complement each other. They have to complement behaviors and structures of the other thing, the opposite thing. Just like the yin and yang, the black complements the white. You wouldn't, if it was only a black circle or a white circle, you wouldn't get this understanding of how things complement each other and how things are built. This is why opposites exist in the phenomenal world, in the expression. They have to look very, very different. They have to have different qualities. It is a masterpiece. This great illusion of a world is an amazing masterpiece, bigger than anything or any creation man has ever made through art or music. So many parameters are involved in creating this beautiful orchestrated thing. And in it lies the world of differences. The difference makes the story. The different kinds of expressions create this magnificent ability for this oneness to look at itself through endless, countless points of view. If the expressions were similar, if the phenomena were similar, the expression would be very shallow because they look the same, so their ability to react to something is limited. There's nothing to object to. When you protest against something, you have an opinion, and you protest against something that you believe is wrong. And here is the story. You represent one thing, this other opinion represents something else. Boom, there's a story. There are emotions, there are opinions, there are actions and beliefs, and everything is so alive because you have like a point of reference. So, in order for this expression to be very, extremely deep, the world of differences appears before the separate form. It looks so divided and beautifully made. Everything inside it is so complete. So you believe it. So this world of differences creates the story. A wonderful story. But it is only a story. And here lies the paradox. When you say that good and bad are basically the same expression of this oneness, when you say lightness and darkness are the same, life and death, and every other opposite two things that you can imagine, This world of differences creates the story, but it's only a story. It's only an expression. It's only an idea. It's only a giant thought. And the real thing, the natural state, this thing, is so empty and complete, and one that these expressions live inside it. There is no place that they live inside it, but as a metaphor, they live inside this place very, very harmoniously. There is no great battle between good and bad in some kind of heaven, and there is a God that wants the good to prevail, and we have to be good in order for the good to rule in this heavenly kingdom, because this heavenly kingdom, this oneness, is already what it is, and it is good. And it is the nature of this oneness is endless compassion, and it is good. So the bad is only an instrument inside this oneness to express the story and to allow what is good to express itself. Good has to protest against something, so it protests against the bad. So what is bad? Bad things allow people to react to them and to act in a compassionate, good way and show the glory and beauty of what is good, all that is good. The nature of this oneness is not light, because light is something we connect to matter, or it is visible to the eye. We can see light. We can know the difference between light and darkness. But the nature of this oneness is not light. But in the story, if there was only light and no dark places, there would not be a picture. A picture is not built out of only the light parts of it. There has to be shadows in order for the forms to take their shape. To make those shapes, we need the difference between them in the story. All these shapes and phenomena have no real substance or existence or power. They don't have power, any kind of power. So the way humanity looks at reality right now is very logical, because this is what appears to the eye. We see the world of differences, but we don't know. Humanity doesn't understand the deeper meaning of these expressions. And if we can understand this very big paradox, that everything is one, that opposites are one, we can act in a more useful way inside our reality, because we don't believe the story. We see things as they are, only as means to some kind of end, and the end is expressing ourselves. The purpose of life, the meaning of life, of everything that is created, of this oneness, is expression, open expression, beautiful expression. This is why the illusion exists, so everything can express itself. This is why it made all these differences between things, so they can complement each other and they can show themselves. So if we understand this simple truth about reality, real reality, not the one humanity perceives as true, we can act in a more logical, rational way. Even if we think it's a paradox, we can act in a way that respects this oneness and allows us to express ourselves. When we say that life and death are not the same things, we also rebel against reality. what is real is that nothing is alive as we perceive it. As we look at things, we believe that they have matter and they're alive and they die. And then we look at these two states, but the absolute reality, nothing ever is being born and nothing dies. So they are the same. And if we, the separate form, will die in this very moment right here on the chair, nothing will change, because absolute thing never changes. It never moves, it never changes, so nothing will happen. So these two things are only in the story as ideas, and this is why it's not a paradox to say that they are the same. They are the same oneness. Living in this state for Simcha, one of the greatest paradoxes for the separate form that she appears to be is that she is speaking right now or here right now. Because when the shift happened and the separate form was gone and this thing knows itself, so it knows, we know, I know, this knows that there is nothing here, no one to talk to, no reason to talk to anyone, and yet she does that right now. And this is a great paradox. Why is she here? Why is she talking? Why she continues to be a loving wife and a mother and clean the house and work as hard as she can? Why she makes such an effort still to everyone and everything she sees? Why? It knows, this thing knows, it's unnecessary. The real absolute state is wanting nothing, nothing to be done. And this is a paradox. So this paradox in Simcha's life solved just like the paradox of everything is solved. It just is. It's just what happens. She is just expressing herself automatically without any burden. And this is what appears to be happening. This thing knows it's not happening. So, but if it appears to be happening, it is doing the best it can, and it's wonderful. It is a paradox to someone who will look and ask, so why are you doing that? But this is the question of someone who is still trapped in the separate form and believes that everything has to have some kind of a reason or a meaning, and then for the separate form, what it gains through what she does. But this state wants nothing, so it doesn't care if it expresses itself in this illusion or not. And if it does its best. This is what it does. No need for interference by Simcha. It's so wonderful to understand this thing, because the word paradox, it's like an enigma, it's like something very mysterious that you never get. It's a paradox. This state is paradox, and it is a wonderful state and a logical state and a complete state. It leaves no unanswered questions. This is it. The paradox is it. Everything is one. You are this oneness, you know this. So all these shapes and phenomena and differences, they live together, they are the same thing. There are no questions, there are no unanswered wondering why these things, how. It only has one purpose, to make the world interesting and to express everything. The differences create the story, and these wonderful differences create the paradox, but it is not a real paradox because it's only an idea. And within the worlds of ideas, there is only one idea, this oneness. And within this oneness, paradox lives and thrives. And it is very, very, very rational.
Nothing good, nothing bad, nothing ventured, nothing gained, nothing stillborn or lost, nothing further than proof, nothing wilder than you, nothing older than time,